Diary entry number 28, Life on the Road. Welcome back to the Nervous System Diaries. This episode will have some extreme trigger warning as I get deeper into the abuse. Let's go ahead and begin. The first week on the road actually seemed kind of cool. Number 2 told me I could sit in the sleeper bunk and write my book or play my games while he drove. At first, I didn't want to do either because I had never been on a semi-truck before. I was trying to get used to the constant moving and the engine noises and what life on the road even looked like. In my mind, riding with him meant 2 things. First, maybe he couldn't cheat if I was right there beside him. Second, maybe I wouldn't have to worry about going hungry anymore. I couldn't have been more wrong. What I didn't expect was to become his unpaid employee. Not his partner, not his passenger, his employee. He expected me to do everything he didn't want to do. He threatened me into completing his paperwork because, according to him, if it didn't get done, he wouldn't get paid, and somehow that became my responsibility. I also waited on him hand and foot, and I don't mean grabbing him a drink while he was driving. I mean changing his socks while the truck was still in forward motion, emptying his pee bottles, taking out his trash, laying out clean clothes because he'd wear the same dirty ones over and over again, making sure he woke up for appointments because if he overslept, he'd blame me. Those early mornings were some of the hardest because he was always so angry when he woke up. It became so overwhelming that I started asking if I could just stay home. He didn't like that either. Most of the routes with this company were day trips at first, and I couldn't understand why I had to be there anyways. I wasn't helping. I was just another thing for him to control. Eventually, they started sending him home longer trips. If we had never been somewhere before, I'd actually get excited. Not because I was excited to be with him, but because I wanted to see different parts of the country I had never seen before. Unfortunately, those trips became terrifying. Number 2 had severe road rage. And road rage inside of an 80,000-pound semi-truck is something I can't even fully describe. If I gripped my seat because I was scared, he'd say, "Why are you doing that? You're making me more stressed." If I gasped because someone pulled out in front of us. If I asked him to back off of someone's bumper. If I quietly said, "Please, slow down," he'd do the opposite. Sometimes I beg him, "Please stop. They have kids in the car. It's not worth it." He'd scream at me. Not raise his voice. Scream. The loudest scream you can imagine. You're always on their side. Never mine. Somehow, everything was always my fault. Another form of control started showing itself too. At first he'd stop so I could shower every couple of days. I needed that. It made me feel human. His hygiene, on the other hand, barely existed. He could go 3 or 4 weeks without bathing unless I pushed the issue. Eventually, he stopped letting me shower too. He'd say, "We don't have the time," or "We're not stopping at a truck stop tonight." Looking back, I truly believe it was intentional. I started washing with baby wipes and dry shampoo. Most days I wore a hat because I was embarrassed. By this point, our relationship didn't even feel like a relationship anymore. It felt like 2 co-workers. I kept having to remind him that he was not my boss, that I was a passenger. And I was also terrified of him. I missed Puppy every single day. I cried constantly. Losing her had broken something inside of me. Whenever I cried, Number 2 never comforted me. Instead, he'd say, "Somebody's going to see you cry and think that I'm abusing you." That sentence says more than he ever realized. Food became another weapon. At first, he'd buy me snacks. But if I opened the bag, "You're too loud." If I chewed, "You're chewing too loud." Sometimes he'd roll the window completely down because he said my food smelled. Eventually, I stopped eating it. Not because I wasn't hungry, because I felt ashamed. Another thing happened. I became a navigator. Imagine being the truck driver but never learning your routes, never using the map book you bought, never doing the trip planning you were trained to do, instead relying completely on your passenger, then blaming your passenger if something went wrong. If he needed to back into a parking spot, I'd have to help guide him in. I wasn't the truck driver. But if anything wasn't perfect, he'd rage at me. I'd stand there crying, trying my best to tell him which direction to turn the wheel. Once the truck was parked and the curtains were closed, that's when the violence started. He hit me in my face. He hit me on my head. One time, he punched me so hard, my glasses broke off my face. I had to go an entire month without glasses because he decided I didn't need another pair yet. He also took his anger with dispatch out on me. If dispatch sent him another load after he had already settled in for a break, he'd explode. One afternoon stands out far more than the others. He still had 5 hours left on his driving clock. Dispatch wanted him to keep going. He didn't want to. Instead, he told me to send the message to his dispatcher saying he'd leave early the next morning. That didn't sit right with me. I simply asked, I don't understand. You still have 5 hours. Why can't we just go? Well, I wish I had never asked that. He started throwing everything that was on the floor, including his pee bottles at me. One of them had urine in it. It exploded all over me. Because I had asked a question of him. I wasn't allowed to clean myself up that day either. I changed my clothes, of course, but he refused to stop so I could shower. I sat in urine for 3 days. I still had to clean the truck afterwards. I was too scared to even move, too scared to speak. That wasn't the last time. Sometimes it was soda. Sometimes it was energy drinks. He dumped them over my head and forced me to sit in sticky clothes until he decided I deserved a shower. Little by little, I disappeared. I became a shell of who I used to be. Everything he asked me to do, I did it immediately. Not because I wanted to, but because I was trying to survive. Looking back now, I ask myself this. Is it normal to destroy 7 laptops, 10 phones, 5 windshields, 4 GPS units, 2 electronic logging devices, all within a year? Of course it isn't. But every single time I'd hear, this wouldn't have happened if you weren't here, even though I had begged to stay home. One day, he threw a cell phone at me so hard, it left a bruise on my arm in the exact shape of his phone. When I showed him, he said, I didn't hit you with it. You just bruise easily. Even food became part of the abuse. If I sighed, if I looked upset, if I disagreed with him, he'd throw food across the truck, smash it into the floor, and then make me clean it up. The fear I lived in was never ending, and as horrible as that all sounds, it still wasn't the worst of what was to come. I need to take a break here, and we'll continue next week. Until then, stay safe. I'm a soft-spoken survivor, and this is the Nervous System Diaries.